In this video, we're going to kind of keep our discussion of morality moving forward and talk about justice. So, what equals fair? Something of this nature. So, when it comes to fair, we can make reference to this thing called distributive justice, that perceived fairness of rewards and how they're distributed to group members. Um, this is a very, very, very big thing that one must keep in mind if you are, say, for example, a parent. Once one child starts screaming, no fair, you as a parent, you're out of luck, all right? If you're a manager in a company and one employee says, no fair, oh God, you're in trouble, okay? So distributive justice is this notion that you can distribute limited resources in these three main ways, or some version of this, some kind of the principle of need is the idea that some people just need more than others. Okay, if you have two children and one is a teenager and one is 5 years old, the teenager needs more cookies because they're a bigger child, they just need more. The principle of equality is the notion that you should take limited resources and split them exactly in half, right? Split them right in half, everybody's exactly the same, and so nobody can say no fair. But meanwhile, what happens is you got a 4 year old that's got so much cookies, they don't know what to do with them, and a teenager's going, I want cookies. And then the principle of equity is the notion that they should be distributed based on contributions. And this is the normal idea of meritocracy or something, that the person that gets more is the one that has worked harder or added more to the resource pool. And so it may be the principle of equity be like, well, Dad bought the cookies, so Dad gets as many as he wants. That seems to me to be a good solution to that problem, right? So here is this idea. They took a sample from the United States and a sample from India, and they asked them, okay, the details are not, it's just say, oh, there's $1,000 at the end of the year, and we're going to give it as an end of year bonus. And there's two employees. We're trying to consider, who should get the money. And so one employee is a very good worker, works hard, produces well. The other one is kind of poor in that way. But the worker that's kind of poor in their production, ooh, they got sick parents at home, they got high bills, they have high levels of need for that $1,000. So who should get the raise? And as it's not a surprise, if you look at the American sample in purple, it's split down the middle. Some said split the money 50-50, both workers get half. But a huge chunk also said equity. The dude that works harder gets more. And not a surprise, as a selfish American, almost nobody said the person that needs it more should get it. Right? But when you go to India, the notion of need was by far the most common way to allocate that limited resource. So they're not a very good worker, but we should give them the bonus. As an American, I would be, if I was that other worker, I would be screaming no fair in a hurry. Okay, it just clearly would not fly well in an American context. All right, on to a slightly different thing. When it comes to this notion of working together, morality, fairness, etc., some interesting work has been done on the evolution of cooperation. So, of course, cooperation is the idea that two people will work together, perhaps sacrifice for each other, but ultimately, in the end, it's to get more as a group. Okay? And so we find that this fairness in the evolution of cooperation has been studied quite extensively in a variety of different games, and I'm going to kind of summarize that line of research right here. In one game called the Ultimatum game, two players come in, they're proposers and receivers, and what happens is the proposer is given like $10 and said, split it any way you want. All right, it's up to you. Make a decision how you're going to do it. And they never meet each other, and the proposer makes decisions, and then what happens is the receiver can say, no, I reject it, nobody gets anything. And so, in some kind of a rational way, the proposer should say, I'll take $10 and give them zero. And then, of course, the receivers should say, no, no, nothing, nobody gets anything. So maybe the proposer would say, okay, here's a rationality. I'll take 9.99 and give the other player 1 cent. And in some kind of a rational way, that other players would say, well, at least I get something. But no, everybody's going to reject that, okay? And so the question is, how much money does it take, or what kind of outcomes you're going to get? A dictator game is slightly different, but what happens in a dictator game is it's the same kind of rules, proposer and receiver, but now the receiver has no ability to control anything. They just get whatever the proposer decides, okay? And so when they played these games here in rural Missouri, they had the ultimatum game and the dictator game, and here's the average offer. And as you can see, the average offer was equality. That's by far the majority of the time, which surprises me because, I mean, if given the opportunity in a dictator game, I'm just saying, I don't know what I'd do, and I might take it all. All right, so it's a kind of an interesting idea. And so these are non-rational in many kinds of ways, especially in the dictator game. What rationality is there? Because you don't know this person, they don't know you. It's a one-time deal. And the idea is researchers believe that these non-rational behaviors, because it is non-rational. In the dictator game, I should take 10 and give you 0. There should be no question. I understand the ultimatum game. I might want to be careful that you don't reject my money. Okay. So we find that people seem to have evolved or generated this notion of they have a reputation. And if you don't act fair, then what's going to happen is you're going to bad reputation, and somebody else is going to come around later and make you pay for it. Okay, so economists argue humans evolved a concern for their reputation, and this led for norms of fairness. It allowed for large-scale cooperation, economic development, things of this nature. Okay, we find they did this. Did they do the ultimatum game? Or I don't remember. Oh, the dictator game. They did the dictator game in all these different cultures, 15 different small-scale societies, herders, farmers, foragers, and it was the same idea. Like we said, it's real money. It's a full day's wages. It's one shot. It's anonymous. Exactly the same. All right, same as they just did up in rural Missouri. And what you find in the dictator game is that the Americans, where were they? Oh, here, are on the far right. And I mean, the way I define fairness or something of this nature, I would think Americans are selfish, but it's the exact opposite, okay? Some of these other rural tribes and groups over here were the most, quote, selfish. When it came to the dictator game, they were saying, I'll keep about $7, $7.50, and give you 250. Okay. And so you see that it's quite a powerful difference here. And so when there was a follow-up study, what they did was they looked at a correlation between how much money they gave, that 250 at the low point, and how many calories, of the calories that you consume, how many are purchased in the market. That is to say, you know, uh, I mean, personally, 100% of my calories are purchased in the market. I don't grow my own food. I don't have any means of creating my own food. I got a tomato plant that I hope doesn't die before I get one tomato out of it. That's economically irrational, okay? But you see what's going here is this: there's a pretty strong correlation between percent of market integration and the meat, and it's like that's interesting because if there's a lot of market integration, that means you have to do transactions on a daily basis. Transactions imply a sense of fairness. If I give you my dollar, I have to trust that you're going to give me the product. Okay. And so there's a lot of trust and a lot of needs, in this situation. In some interesting other studies that were done related to this, they create games, and the details are kind of long, but third party punishment. So they set up a game and they allow people to play fairly or unfairly, whatever fair means. And so, like in the dictator game, unfair would be offering I'll take all 10 and, you get nothing. And so they set up a game different, but similar to this idea. And so players were allowed to be unfair. However, other players were given the opportunity, if another player has in fact made a decision, you're allowed to take some of your resources and punish them. They call it third party punishment. So I will sacrifice. If you do things that are not fair from our group, I will take some of my own resources to punish you for acting what I consider to be unfair. Huh? And this is also referred to as altruistic punishment because you're not only punishing somebody else that's unfair, but you're literally sacrificing some of your own resources to do so. So it is altruistic in that sense. Um, this is a powerful thing as well, similar to the dictator game findings, that this, if I am always aware that you might punish me, whether this punishment comes in the forms of taking my resources or in some societies, punishment is in the term of social ostracism. So people that are unfair, people will just shun them. Okay, it's just the same idea. And so if I am aware that I can be punished if I act unfairly, that is going to kind of hold me to a cooperative set of behaviors. And so in this fascinating study with the public goods game, with this possibility for altruistic or third party punishment, they find that a sample in Boston or Melbourne, Australia, were the ones that were most likely or spent the highest number of resources on altruistic punishment. Okay, and so you can see all samples used altruistic punishment. It doesn't matter which group they were from. But what's fascinating is that if you move your way down on the right side, those bars are something different. It's like if somebody else is too generous, how much will you punish them? And it turns out Americans in Boston, if you want to be stupid and be super generous, I'm going to let you be generous. But as you move your way down, there are certain cultures, especially Muscat. Muscat would be in Yemen, and in this group in Yemen here, they're pretty clear. They're like, you should not be too selfish and you should not be too generous because both of those are bad. Selfish is bad for the group, and if you are too generous, it makes me look stupid. All right, make me look like a all right, and I'll punish you for it. So pretty powerful idea right